Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into the blueprint from one of business's great rebels, Sam Walton. His book, Made in America, isn't just the story of how Walmart got built. It's the story of a maverick, a pioneer who completely changed the rules of retail by deciding to do pretty much everything differently.
Right there, from the very beginning of his book, Walton just gives us the key to his entire way of thinking. This one idea, swimming upstream, it defines every single major decision he ever made. It's really the theme of his whole story, this relentless, almost obsessive need to zig when everybody else was zagging.
And that's exactly why this book is so incredible. This isn't some story about a guy who inherited a ton of money or got a lucky break. No, this is a practical guide, a playbook on how to build an empire by just breaking the old rules and making up new ones. And that all started in his very first store.
So let's go all the way back to the beginning. We're talking about a small Ben Franklin variety store in Newport, Arkansas. You can think of this as Sam Walton's first laboratory, right? This is where he started tinkering with all these unconventional ideas that would eventually become the foundation of Walmart.
So his first store was an absolute smash hit. I mean, he was a local hero. But that success led directly to what he later called the absolute low point of his business life. Because he did so well, his landlord saw a golden opportunity, refused to renew the lease, and basically kicked him out of his own successful business. What a brutal lesson, right? The risk of being too successful.
So this is where we see Walton's first huge break from tradition. At the time, every other merchant was trying to squeeze as much profit as they could from each individual thing they sold. But Walton championed this idea that seemed totally backward. Make less per item, but sell a ton of it. This was the birth of his whole discounting philosophy. And this just explains it perfectly. As Walton tells it in the book, he discovered this super powerful principle while selling something as simple as ladies' panties. Yeah, this simple bit of math, that lower prices could actually lead to way higher overall profits, that became the economic engine for his entire company.
Even in that very first store, you could already see the rebel merchant at work. He was breaking all the franchise rules. He'd drive his own car and trailer out to Tennessee to find better deals from suppliers, he'd ignore the company's pricing structure, and he turned the sidewalk outside into this little carnival to draw people in. He was just obsessed with one thing, giving the customer a better deal.
So after getting forced out of Newport, you'd think Walton might play it safe for a while. Nope. Instead, he made his biggest and most unconventional bet yet, on a market that literally every other major retailer in America was completely ignoring.
You know, what seemed like a constraint was actually a stroke of genius. He made a promise to his wife, Helen, that they'd avoid big cities. And that simple promise accidentally became the defining strategy for Walmart for the next 20 years. It forced him to look where absolutely no one else was looking.
And this was his big aha moment, his revolutionary discovery. While Kmart and all the other big chains were battling it out in the suburbs and big cities, Walton pioneered a totally new model, building these huge discount stores in tiny towns, some with populations under 5,000 people. He saw this ocean of demand that nobody else even knew was there.
Just look at this chart. It puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? You can see just how far upstream he was swimming. Kmart wouldn't even consider a town under 50,000 people. Walton was building stores in towns a tenth of that size. He wasn't just competing differently, he was playing an entirely different game on a field no one else even knew existed.
And his first stores were, well, they weren't fancy. In his own words, they were truly ugly, just big barns stuffed to the rafters of merchandise. But they proved his core theory. In these small towns, customers would choose low prices and a huge selection over fancy decorations every single time. And they did.
He also had this really unique way of doing market research. I mean, he admits it right in the book. He borrowed every good idea he could find. He'd spend hours in his competitors' stores, sometimes literally on his hands and knees, measuring shelf space, talking to the clerks, scribbling notes. He was just a relentless student, always looking for an edge.
Okay, so Walton knew that a radical business model like his couldn't survive without an equally radical culture. To make it all work, he had to build a company from the inside out that was just as unconventional as his stores were on the outside.
It all started with a simple name change. He actually borrowed the term associate from JCPenney, but he was dead set on making it mean something. For Sam Walton, an associate wasn't just another employee. They were a true partner in the business.
And his book is just filled with these incredible stories, like this one from Bob Clark, a truck driver.
That whole partnership model, it wasn't just talk. It created life-changing wealth and this fierce loyalty for thousands of hourly associates who decided to bet on Sam Walton.
So let's talk about that bet for a second. This number right here, $16.50. That was the price for a single share of Walmart stock when the company went public back on October 1st, 1970. And here's the result, with the data pulled straight from his book. A single investment of $1,650 for 100 shares in 1970 was worth over $3 million just 20 years later. I mean, that is an astonishing return. It just proved the power of his partnership model, turning janitors and truck drivers into millionaires.
But the partnership wasn't just about the money. Walton built this culture of really radical communication. From those now famous Saturday morning meetings to sharing detailed financial numbers with every single associate, he believed the more his partners knew, the more they'd care and contribute. And that's how you get ideas like the people greeter. It came directly from the front lines, because he was always listening. So, near the end of his life, Walton basically distilled his entire philosophy down into a handful of simple but really powerful rules. This was his final blueprint for how to build a business. His first 3 rules really form this foundation that's built on people. It all starts with your own deep commitment. Then you extend that to your team by making them actual partners. And from there, your job is just to keep that partnership energized and always pushing forward. And these next 3 rules are all about how you maintain that partnership. He argues for just total transparency and constant appreciation. And then he adds this crucial piece that so many people miss: celebration, finding the humor in your failures and the joy in your successes. For him, that wasn't just a nice little perk, it was a core business practice.
This one quote just captures his upstream leadership style perfectly. While everyone else was hoarding information, he believed that trusting your people with it, really empowering them, was the ultimate competitive advantage. And he thought that advantage was way bigger than any risk.
You know, reading his story today really makes you wonder, in our world of remote work and digital everything, which one of these swimming upstream rules is the most essential? And maybe, which one would be the hardest to actually follow? His intensely hands-on, people-first approach is still a timeless challenge. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.